yeah, it's really good.
We watched Nosferatu.
What did you think? Because I
Okay.
really want to see it.
It's really good, but like there's a lot of like awkward, like they're not sex scenes. It's like scenes of her having sexual dreams. So it just like shows her from here up and she's just like moaning all weird. Like people are like giggling and stuff.
Well, if you think that's awkward, a friend of mine went to see that new Nicole Kidman one
I've
that's pretty
heard.
spicy. And she was like, spoiler alert, I guess if you're listening and you want to see it, it opens like straight into a sex scene, like boom, straight into it. And my friend and her bestie went to see it in theaters. And she was like, there was an older gentleman sat directly next to me.
Oh, God.
She's like, he was fine. Like, he did nothing inappropriate or anything. Like, that's not where this story is going. But she's like, he came alone and chose to sit next to two, like, women in their 20s kind of thing.
So weird.
And she's like, it wasn't a particularly packed theater. But she's like, we knew what we were getting into. Like, we watched the trailers. Like, we weren't totally oblivious. But she's like, knowing what you would know, you wouldn't want to sit next to somebody else, I feel like.
No. And all I know about that movie is that it's raunchy. That's like all, that Nicole Kidman is in it. That's like all the details I know.
That woman has not stopped working. I swear to God, she's put out like 6 movies in the last year.
Yeah, I mean, good for her.
Good for her. Anywho, hello everyone. I'm Charlotte.
And I'm Dina. Welcome to the Grim Curriculum.
So today's story is a little different. For starters, we're not even talking about a human today. This story is about an elephant.
That's right. So full disclosure, our original intention behind this story was for it to be a little bit of what we call a palate cleanser.
Yeah.
We like to do those anytime we've covered a particularly gruesome case.
Yes.
And we thought after John Bonet, we kind of needed it.
That being said, apparently this is not at all the kind of story we really ended up with.
I went into this knowing very little. I first heard about this when I was looking for a strange and unusual death for extra credit.
Yes.
And the research behind this one left me feeling very upset with humans.
Well, that's me on a daily basis. So
this won't help.
Yeah, no kidding. This story is a very, very sad one. So y'all can just brace yourselves for that one.
Don't say we didn't warn you.
Yeah.
Today we are covering Topsy the Elephant, who is tragically executed on January 4th, 1903 in public.
January 4th is my birthday. Also, I mean, a little late, but thank you all for the birthday wishes. That was
happy belated
That
birthday.
was very nice of you all. Thank you.
You share a fun little date there.
You know what? There's I also share a birthday with the lead singer of Rammstein as well.
Really?
Yeah.
The only person who's a celebrity that I know I share a birthday with is Eve.
Oh, like the rapper.
Yeah.
And I share one with Topsy. Well, not a birthday, a death day.
Yeah. Maybe you're Topsy reincarnated.
You know what? That would explain a lot about my demeanor in general.
Topsy's death was captured in a short film, and it's likely the first time an animal death was captured on camera.
Along with that, we're also going to be talking about the early days of the circus industry, which Topsy unfortunately found herself in the center of, as well as the alleged involvement of Thomas Edison when it came to her unjust death.
Topsy was an Asian elephant who was most likely born around the year 1875. She was captured by smugglers as a baby.
Oh, wow.
She was sold to Adam Forepaugh of the Forepaugh Circus and was added to their herd of elephants. They falsely advertised her as the first elephant born on U.S. soil.
Early marketing. Before we get further into her story, let's just discuss the Forepaugh Circus.
Adam Forepaugh was born into an impoverished home in Philadelphia. He began working as a butcher at the ripe old age of 9.
Holy cow.
He eventually relocated to Cincinnati, where he found work as a cattle appraiser and also managed a line of stagecoaches. He then moved to New York City, where he began a livestock and horse trading business.
This worked out pretty well for him, and he eventually became the largest supplier of horses in the state and earned a reputation for being an expert judge of said horses.
His business included buying unwell animals from streetcar companies, getting them back in tip-top shape, and then selling them for a huge profit. During the Civil War, countless horses were killed in battle, and therefore the animals had become scarce. Because of this, he became incredibly wealthy. And now this sounds like the start of a fairly inspirational tale.
Absolutely.
But this guy sucks.
Yeah, they usually did.
They did, didn't they?
Forepaugh got into the circus business in 1864 when he sold 44 horses to John Pogie O'Brien of the Tom King Excelsior Circus for $9,000, which would be roughly $30,000 today.
Old Pogie wasn't able to pay him back, so Forepaugh became part owner of the circus. That following year, the two purchased the Jerry Maybe Menagerie, and with it created the Great National Circus and the Dan Rice Circus. He sold one and renamed the other after himself.
In November of 1865, he opened the Philadelphia Circus and Menagerie. His circus toured a minimum of 250 days a year and employed over 400 people. On average, they cleared $300,000 a year, which would have been a very pretty penny in those
They were making
days.
bank. Two of his main competitors were, of course, P.T. Barnum and the Ringling Brothers.
When you think circus, you think those two names.
You don't think Forepaugh.
Exactly.
He set himself apart from them by being heavily involved in the business. He had more animals than Barnum, and the two became rivals who would constantly fight over the rights to perform at the top venues throughout the country. So this guy was so involved that normally, like, if you bought a circus, you were like, okay, I'm going to stand behind and make money.
It's a business that you're running, but you're not on site.
So Forepaugh, what he would do is whenever they were doing a show, he would sit at kind of the very like top part of it, and watch everything. And it was said that he could watch the circus on any given night, almost completely correctly predict how much money they were going to make that night.
Whoa.
And because of that, no one was able to like swindle him or anything like that.
I mean, that's a very good businessman from that point of view.
Yes, absolutely.
They signed various truces to divide the country into their own exclusive circus territories. And despite that, on one occasion, Forepaugh was given permission to perform at Madison Square Garden, which was technically on Barnum territory. He managed this because Barnum had not renewed his contract with them on time. Sneaky.
He dove right in. Like, this guy was, I don't like him, but he was really on top of things.
Yeah, no kidding.
The industry, even at that time, was known for its shady business practices. Forepaugh had no issue with this and often used unconventional methods to increase profits. On one occasion, Barnum had purchased what he thought to be a white elephant for an exorbitant amount of money. Upon its arrival, he saw that the animal was not white, but light-colored with spots.
See, this is what happens when you buy elephants without viewing them first.
You should always see your elephants before you buy them.
Exactly. When Forepaugh heard about this, he thought it was a great opportunity to one-up Barnum. He took a regular gray elephant and whitewashed it, calling it the Light of Asia. An 1884 promotional poster done by Forepaugh read,
"Too white for Barnum. Forepaugh's reply to Barnum. Forepaugh's sacred white elephant, Light of Asia, proved by the highest scientific authority to be genuine, and Barnum's quote-unquote sacred white elephant and all of its surroundings to be a rank fraud."
Wow, you could really say anything if you had enough money. I mean, you still can, to be fair.
It's true.
In those days, you could just make shit up on the spot.
I love old-timey rivalries.
Oh, it's like so petty and so like camp at the same time. It's like, guys, you are literally two circus owners.
It always reminds me of back in the day when we covered the Jersey Devil.
Yes.
And we talked about all the different like property disputes. And the one guy who like wrote about how his rival had died. And anytime he saw him, he referred to him as a ghost.
Yes, exactly. Just the pettiness.
I love it.
I do too. Their feud was well known, and eventually others saw that they could make money by playing into it. A reporter snuck close enough to the Light of Asia and removed some of the whitewash from it for a story. Instead of publishing his findings, he sold the information to Barnum for a hefty amount of money. Wow, we're all being swindler, little sneaky, conniving people here.
Now, you might be wondering why we're talking about circus feuds, but we really wanted to paint a picture of the competitive nature of the industry and how far people were willing to go to make money from these animals. That all brings us back to our girl Topsy.
Like we mentioned, Topsy's claim to fame was supposed to be that she was the first elephant born in the US, which was a lie. The man he bought her from also sold elephants to Barnum, who exposed the story publicly, and Forepaugh, as a result, stopped making the claim, instead saying that she was the first elephant born outside of a tropical area.
As an adult, Topsy stood at a whopping 10 feet high and weighed around 4 metric tons. She was considered to be a relatively obedient elephant. The steps taken to get her to that point would by no doubt be considered highly abusive by today's standards.
Oh, I'm positive she was not living a comfortable life.
No, and the thing with elephants is like they are such intelligent and emotional animals.
Yes. The way people have studied them for a very long time.
Mhm.
And, you know, they say an elephant never forgets. It's really true. They're these giant lumbering beasts,
Yeah.
but they're very intelligent. Yeah, it makes me very sad to see what the circus industry has done to them over the last, 100, 200 years.
There's a story, I think we talked about it at some point on Extra Credit,
Mm.
but this elephant had stomped this lady to death because she like
Yes.
abused it.
Yep.
And then it showed up at her funeral
Yes, I remember this.
and like got into the hole that she was in and then grabbed her again and started thrashing her body around.
And he basically scared away anybody that had come to her funeral. So
Yeah.
it's like, not only fuck you, but like no one's allowed to mourn you.
Yeah.
Be gone.
That's elephants.
Absolutely. Over the years, Topsy began to gain a reputation for being a bad elephant. In 1902, she was responsible for the death of a spectator named James Fielding Blount. Blount?
Dude, I don't know.
Blount.
Blount.
James Fielding Blount. Sounds very of the time.
It does, doesn't it?
It's unclear exactly what happened, but one of the theories is that James was drunk and walked into the tent where the elephants were and began teasing them one by one. Some reports say that he even attempted to offer them all a shot of his whiskey.
Brilliant.
Guys,
The main feeling of this story is leave elephants alone.
yes, absolutely leave them alone.
So he eventually made his way to Topsy and threw sand in her face. He then burnt the tip of her trunk with a lit cigar, likely by trying to offer it to her.
You little bastard. She reacted by picking him up, throwing him to the ground, and then she crushed him.
I don't want to say he deserved it, but kind of deserved it.
Hey, that is the elephant equivalent of the Hulk absolutely raging out on Loki.
Yep.
When he like smashes him back and forth. That's what Topsy did to this gentleman. The press took this story, of course, and ran with it. Soon after, claims were made that Topsy had killed up to 12 men in Waco before James's death. In a book written about Topsy in 2013, journalist Michael Daly stated that he could find no record of anyone being killed by an elephant in Waco, Texas.
So they just made this shit up. Prior to this, Topsy did attack a handler in Paris, Texas, but he survived.
And at this point, I can't help but feel that basically any human that has had any interaction with this elephant kind of deserved whatever they got at this point.
When I was looking into all of this, obviously I feel like the positivities, like those aren't going to be shared.
For
But
sure.
I could not find one report about anyone who was kind to this elephant.
That makes me so freaking sad. We did warn you guys. These stories only made the public more interested in her, and circus goers began buying tickets specifically to see Topsy the Bad Elephant.
And we say bad elephant because that's literally what they called her. She was Topsy the Bad Elephant.
That's not even good marketing.
No.
It could have, not to encourage bad behavior by any means, but like Topsy the Monster Elephant, Topsy the Killer Elephant,
Topsy
even.
the Rebel.
Absolutely. Topsy the Bad Elephant, we can do better.
That same year, Topsy was being unloaded from a train in Kingston, New York, when a spectator named Louis Dondero tried to tickle her ear with a stick. She grabbed him by the waist and threw him to the ground. A trainer stopped her before things escalated further.
Louis got off very, very lucky.
He really did.
She could have torn him in half if
Easily.
she wanted to. After all this, the owners of Four Paw Circus decided to sell her.
And believe it or not, her tragic life only got worse from there.
She was sold to Luna Park in Coney Island to be a part of their menagerie. One of her handlers from Four Paw, an absolute trash bag of a man named William Whitey Alt, came with her.
Topsy was mostly used for publicity. She mainly moved timber, and at one point, She pulled an airship for the amusement park ride, A Trip to the Moon. The media called this her penance for her rampaging ways.
This is an injustice that it's really breaking my heart.
Justice for Topsy. I want the t-shirt.
Absolutely. Alt was known even back then for his harsh methods when it came to handling animals. We mean it when we say this guy sucked. On more than one occasion, he prodded her with a pitchfork to the point where blood was streaming down her face and body. Bastard.
Seriously.
People who hurt animals, man. Biggest walking red flags on the fucking planet.
Absolutely. A police officer saw the poor treatment of Topsy by Alt and confronted him. Alt, who was blazing drunk, responded by releasing her from her harness and allowing her to run through the streets.
Alt was arrested for this, but didn't face much in the form of punishment. In fact, newspapers continued to paint her as a villain, with headlines such as, "Topsy the Bad Elephant makes trouble at Coney."
Justice for Topsy.
Ah, yikes.
In December of 1902, Alt, once again drunk, rode Topsy down the street and attempted to release her into the police station. Reports stated that she tried to break through the door and that she set up a terrific trumpeting, which caused police officers to lock themselves in a cell for their protection. After this, Alt was finally fired.
This poor animal is being used now as a weapon of minor destruction, basically. And it's not her fault. And this prick is just some drunk asshole taking advantage of the situation.
You know, I'm going to say this, and I don't know if anyone knows a guy with this nickname. I have never heard a good thing about a man with the nickname Whitey.
You know, the only other person that comes to mind is Whitey Bulger, who was a Boston gangster. Johnny Depp played him.
Okay.
And he's also a very violent, and I believe he's dead now. But yeah, not a particularly nice individual.
No, it's not a good name.
No, absolutely not. Without Alt, the owners of the park realized they had a problem. They claimed they were no longer able to handle Topsy. I would have to agree with them there.
Yes.
Apparently, they did try to sell her, but no one wanted to buy a bad elephant. Ha ha, that's what you get for fucking advertising her as such. What did you think was going to happen?
They even tried to sell her to a zoo.
And the zoo didn't want her.
They were like, no one can handle this elephant. She's killed 12 men.
Because you've ruined her.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as, there's no such thing as a bad dog, just bad people, basically.
Yes, absolutely.
There's no such thing as a bad elephant.
They went as far as to say that they even tried to give her away, but there were no takers. They made the decision to euthanize her instead. At first, they wanted to hang her in front of a paying audience.
Well, this poor animal, see no peace. I guess she has now, but Jesus Christ. When the ASPCA found out about this, they told them that they could put her to death, but that it could not be by hanging. Her owners offered to give her to the ASPCA, but they declined the offer. Man, some animal charity you are.
Right, take the elephant, figure it out later.
For God's sakes. During negotiations, they even discussed electrocuting her or using poison.
This would not be the first time that was attempted. In 1901, an elephant named Jumbo was electrocuted, but it was botched and the animal suffered greatly. They agreed to the electrocution of Topsy along with strangulation and poison.
Okay. The elephant's going to die. That is inevitable, apparently, in this story. Could they not have shot her? Just put her out of her misery? No, they had to make a spectacle. And
they got to make money.
They couldn't decide on one method of execution, so they had to go with all three. Wow, you guys. Oh my. Anyone involved in this, I hope into the afterlife you are ashamed of yourself.
I hope so too. I hope your family is ashamed to share your name.
Absolutely. On December 13th, 1902, their press agent released a statement saying that they had decided Topsy would be killed.
The date of her death was set to be January 4th, 1903. This was, of course, highly publicized. Over 1,500 people turned out to see her die. 100 spectators were allowed into the park, and that was what they agreed on with the ASPCA. They're like, you can't charge people for this, but you can let 100 people in.
The ASPCA in here, I hoped would be a voice of reason.
Nah.
But they're barely that.
The rest of the people who wanted to see her die gathered nearby. Some peeked over the fence, and nearby businesses allowed people onto the roofs of their buildings for a fee so they could watch.
The electric tower at Luna Park was outfitted with ropes that were inspected by the ASPCA. The electrocution was handled by workers of the Edison Electric Illuminating Company of Brooklyn. They had spent the night prior to the execution stringing power lines from the Coney Island Electrical Substation 9 blocks to the park to carry the alternating current that they planned to use. That's a long extension cord.
Yes, it is. That day, Topsy was led out of her pen by Carl Goliath, an elephant specialist. When they attempted to lead her over the bridge to the site, she refused to follow. Goliath prodded her, but she wouldn't move.
They even offered her carrots and apples, but Topsy, almost as if she knew what was coming, stayed where she was. You know, we've just said they're not stupid animals. I think she knew.
She knew. I really do believe that. The team attempted to recruit Alt to lead her, but he refused. When they offered him $25 to do it, he responded by saying he wouldn't do it for $1,000 and that he refused to watch her be put to death.
Now, this is an interesting Grinch heart grew 3 sizes
Yeah.
that day. Maybe he stopped drinking and got his shit together?
Maybe. But I think like at that time, this guy probably thought like, yeah, I'll stab her with a pitchfork and make her bleed, but she listens to me, so I'm really good at my job and we have a relationship.
You know, that's very true. I mean, perspective is everything, right?
Yeah.
They then decided to bring the equipment to Topsy. The lines were re-rigged to where she stood. Copper-lined sandals were attached to her right front foot and her left back foot so that the charge would flow evenly through her body.
Onlookers were shocked to see her obediently lift her feet so the sandals could be put on. One of them was reported to say, "Not so vicious, is she?"
Officials then fed her cyanide-laced carrots. As she ate the third one, someone shouted, "All right!"
A call was made to the Coney Island station, who closed a switch. Then the Luna Park chief electrician closed another one. This sent 6,000 volts through her body for 10 seconds before she fell to the ground. It was reported that she did not make neither a trumpet or a groan.
After she fell, 2 nooses were placed around her neck for 10 minutes. At 2:47 p.m., Topsy the Elephant was pronounced dead.
During her execution, the superintendent of the Coney Island station was almost electrocuted when he threw the switch. He was knocked unconscious and sustained burns.
I don't feel particularly sorry for him, I'm sorry. Among the press in attendance was a film crew from the Edison Film Company. They shot a 74-second film of the execution, which is still available to this day.
And because of that, Topsy has a credit on IMDb.
Wow. I'm not sure she'd agree that it was all worth it in the end.
No. I refuse to watch the film.
No, I don't want to see it.
During research, I saw the stills.
Yeah.
And that was enough for me. I guess if you really want to ruin your week, you can check it out. But why would you?
You know, I'm a big believer in documenting things for posterity, for history. You know, they say even these days, some of the best unknown documentary filmmakers are people out there with phones in their hands, right?
Yeah.
Because we film everything. We take so many pictures. I mean, God knows I have thousands of pictures of Buffy on my phone. But I do believe there are some things that don't really need to be around.
It's interesting because during that time, they made a lot of videos of like horses jumping off of diving boards and just like elephants doing tricks and stuff like that. Now, the majority of the movies that they made were all destroyed. This just happens to be one that survived.
That's crazy. In 1999, Topsy was commemorated in the Coney Island Mermaid Parade in a float. On the 100-year anniversary of her death, the Coney Island Museum allowed the public to view the execution film on a hand-cranked mutoscope, which you might have seen if you've played like BioShock Infinite, the kind of thing where you put your hand in and then you would turn it and you would see the little movie kind of thing, like a little silent film. That's incredibly morbid.
It is. I've actually been able to use an authentic mutoscope.
That's so cool.
And it's funny, I'll get off topic, but the film that the fellow who collected it had, and this mutoscope, it's a whole story. He had found it in this guy's barn, and then he bought it and restored it.
So
and the
cool.
one film that he was able to get is this, like, again, very short movie.
Yeah.
It's all pictures, right? Of these two ladies in fur coats, and this is in the 20s.
Okay.
And so they get out of this car in their fur coats, they take off the jackets, and they're completely nude. And then they turn around and, like, show their butts, and it ends.
That is so scandalous.
I know. I was like,
For the
1920s, hello.
I love that. Slay girls.
Nicole Kidman would love to do that.
Slay. Oh, that's so funny. I love
Honestly,
that.
it's amazing. I, like, saw it. I didn't know what I was going to watch. And he just showed it to me. He's like, check this out. And yeah, I was like, oh, okie dokie.
That's so funny. I want to see that so bad. This does all bring us, of course, not to the end, but to Thomas Edison, who has been strongly associated with Topsy's death. Articles published as recently as 2008 have also made this claim. However, it appears that this is a common misconception.
And one of the reasons was it was, like, the Edison company that filmed it. The electric company also had the name Edison in it. He had nothing to do with this. So the idea came from a rumor that Thomas Edison had used the execution to show the dangers of alternating currents during the now famous War of the Currents between him and Nikola Tesla.
You know what? I have heard this story before, so it's completely
false.
Oh, wow.
While he did not kill Topsy to show this, he did electrocute several dogs, cows, and horses.
Okay. You guys know how I feel. I'm just going to move along. In 1903, the War of the Currents had long ended. His crew did attend and film her execution, but Edison himself was not there, nor did he have anything to do with it.
Interestingly enough, 2 years after her death, another elephant named Fanny was taken to Luna Park when she bolted and swam across the river to Staten Island. She did this after she passed the exact spot where Topsy's head was buried.
Well, we've talked about how a pretty crazy situation can leave energies, if you believe in ghosts and, paranormal activity, so to speak. And if elephants, we've talked about them being very intelligent, very sensitive creatures.
They hold funerals.
Yes, they absolutely do. They say that they know when their death is coming and will go find an appropriate place to die.
Yeah.
So it would not be that far-fetched to me that another elephant would feel some bad vibes from the spot. And such bad vibes that she chose to be like, well, peace out, bitches.
I'm getting off this island.
Topsy is one of 6 elephants executed in the United States, the last being in 1916 by hanging.
So the various forms of death were hanging, strangulation, poisoning, and firing squad.
I just can't imagine that strangulation is that effective on an elephant.
It's a fucking elephant. Well, when they originally wanted to do this, they literally wanted to string her up in public.
It would have just been incredibly distressing, but I don't think you would have had to use ropes that you would use on battleships.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, you're not just, silly making a little noose that would work for a human. This is an animal that weighs 4 to 8 tons. These people were idiots.
I know. And you know what? I thought about this because I really did. I put some thought into this and I was like, let me try to put myself in the shoes of someone in the early 1900s. They didn't have entertainment like we do today.
Yeah.
And I mean, people were still watching public executions of human beings.
That's
for fun.
very true. That's very true. Yeah.
So to them, to be able to see an elephant die must have been just fascinating. But I can't imagine, first of all, wanting to see a human executed.
No.
Let alone for fun. But to watch
it's not entertainment.
No, it's not. It's an abomination. And then to watch like an elephant die. I don't get it.
I think it's the same kind of people that will like eat endangered birds and stuff like that. It's like you just want to see it to see it.
Yeah.
You're so irreverent of the life.
Yes.
And I can't stand it. I cannot stand it. Absolutely not.
It honestly, like, this whole story just made me dislike humans a little bit more.
Yeah. And I mean, individually, I love humans.
Of course.
Some of my favorite things on this planet are human beings.
Mhm.
But as a group, guys, pretty reprehensible species. I think you'll all agree. That sounds so bitter and cynical. It's just where I'm at in the year right now.
Right, but you know what? I remember I was really, really young. We had just moved to Canada.
Yeah.
And I was taken to a circus. And there was an elephant there, and you could like pay to ride the elephant. And my parents were like, we're not going to do that. But I remember even being like 6, 7 years old and being like, wow, holy crap, an elephant. That's so cool. Oh my God, this is so sad.
Yes.
And also seeing like here at the Edmonton Valley Zoo, there is a very famous elephant named Lucy. And people have been petitioning for her to be sent somewhere more appropriate for decades. And even like, I haven't been to that zoo for a long time, but the last time I was there, you know, you see them just like walking her around. And it's, first of all, elephants are very social creatures. She's all by herself.
And she's been by herself for a very long time now as well.
It's just sad. Leave the elephants alone.
Yeah. I understand for conservation purposes and stuff like that. But to me, the conservation effort should be made in their place of nature.
Yes, or at least a proper sanctuary where you have acres and acres of land. They can be around other elephants and bodies of water that's similar enough to their natural environment, but not a zoo or a circus.
I agree. It gets very Tiger King very quickly, I find.
Very quickly.
All right, dear listeners, that is the sad, tragic, and depressing story of Topsy the Elephant.
And I just want to say, Topsy, you were not a bad elephant. You were a very, very good girl.
Absolutely. I love elephants.
I love elephants.
I like Asian elephants. I like African elephants. I would love to see one in person one day, but I want to see them wild and from a distance. I have no desire to be any closer.
I want to see them like running around, or like you see the videos of like the baby elephants playing.
Oh my
and,
God,
like
so
having
cute.
a good time and all of that. I don't want to see them, because the thing is with elephants, I feel like they have their faces don't move around very much.
No.
But they have very expressive eyes.
Yes.
And you can just see the sadness in their eyes, and it's heartbreaking.
Absolutely.
We do want to just take a second and say a huge thank you to our friend Cosplay Bug Yeg. They recently helped us out in a really big way by compiling all of our strange and unusual deaths into a sheet for us to use, because I keep forgetting what I've talked about. And did it for our facts at the end of the episodes too. And it's honestly super handy.
Yeah, shout out to you. Freaking awesome with the spreadsheets, by the way.
I love it. I love a good spreadsheet.
Much appreciation. The organization, much help. So it is that time of the episode, of course, where we give a shout out to our lovely VIPs over on Patreon.
A huge thank you to Atlantean Jedi, Bob, Brian, Carrie, Judy, Kevinus Musicus, Nova, Lisa, Mayhem Mudkip, Paranoid Pop Rocks, Steven Centauri, and our newest patron, Yegpla.
Oh, hello and welcome, Yegpla.
Yeah, that list is growing.
It is.
You guys are amazing.
Love you all. Thank you so much. And for those of you, if you're not on Patreon already, what are you doing? Get on Patreon. Yeah. We have everything from a free tier to our VIP tier. Our VIP tier, of course, gets a shout out on each episode. But our free tier, we do have a free trial. And plus, Dina does episode reveals every week. So if you want to know what we're covering before it comes out on that Saturday, Patreon's the place to be.
You get it for free. And if you do sign up for the paid tiers, you get video versions of the episodes. We got Discord. I post some other stuff on there too. It's a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you. And shout out to everybody else who's listening across the various platforms. We love you too. If you are at our YouTube premieres on Saturdays, big shout out. We always love to see you guys in the chat, giving your opinions and also just hanging out.
They are at 12 p.m. MST every Saturday, and it is a damn good time.
It is. Thank you all so much for listening. This has been The Grim Curriculum. And you know what? I have an elephant-based fact, actually.
I was hoping for one.
So when a elephant sees a human being in good context, not in the context of this story, but in a good context, they feel the same way about us as we do like puppies and kittens. They think we're cute.
And we mistreat them.
I know. Stop it. They think we're cute. Be nice to them.
Justice for Topsy.
Justice for Topsy.
Bye.